morning. My name is Jackie Anderson. I'm an assistant dean at the University of St. Thomas, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our weekly online learning series. Today's session is Leading Virtually Without Virtually Leading, how leaders can use this time to transform their leadership practice. And our facilitator today is Alison Smith. I hope participating in these weekly events is giving you an opportunity for some great professional development, as well as some measure of normal to your week. Just so you know, we have more comprehensive development options available. All of our executive education courses are now being held virtually in the near term. So if you're interested in a certificate or expanding your learning in a specific area, take some time and check out our website. Just so you know, for our weekly online learning series, next week we are hosting Kim Martinez on Wednesday, May 13th. And between her experience in education, as well as her time at General Mills, she brings some great expertise to the topic, and we'll be talking about the do's and don'ts during a crisis. And then 2 weeks from today, on Thursday, May 21st, Professor Kyle Goldschmidt is joining us, talking about the past, present, and the future of the global supply chain. So if you haven't signed up for our next sessions, take a look at our website. We'd love to see you. So let me talk about the logistics for today. Our plan is a simple one. In a moment, I'm going to introduce Alison Smith, and she's going to spend about 45 minutes kind of laying this landscape around leading virtually without virtually leading. Now, we are going to try to save questions for the end. However, feel free to put your question in the chat feature to all panelists, and we will save those questions up for the end and have Alison give us some insight. We plan to end by 8:55, so you have at least 5 minutes before you go on to your next meeting. Now, if you have any issues, don't hesitate to use the chat feature to let us know. And if for some reason you get interrupted or need to step away, the whole session is being recorded, and we will be sending out an email with a link to the content within about 48 hours after today's session. So with that, it is my pleasure to introduce today's facilitator, Alison Smith. Alison is actually adjunct faculty here at the University of St. Thomas. She teaches in our executive MBA and is also an executive coach. She also works in executive education in our St. Thomas program. Prior to her teaching career, she was Vice President of Organization Design and Development for Caribou Coffee. Alison has a Master's of Science degree in Positive Organization Development from Case Western Reserve, really the place where positive organization development was created. And in a really unique twist, she's actually a graduate of the London College of Fashion. I can promise you a very engaging and a very fun session. It's my pleasure to welcome Alison Smith to our weekly online learning series.
Thank you. Thank you, Jackie. Good morning, everybody. It is my great good pleasure to be with you this morning. It is a beautiful morning here in Minneapolis, and hopefully I have some things that are going to make you feel good about the day as well. So let's get started then. So here we go. Bum, ba, bum, bum, bum. So when we think about virtual, particularly these days, we tend to think about the computer side of virtual. We think about virtual coffees and virtual happy hours and virtual meetings and virtual this and virtual that, all kind of aided by the computer. But it's not really that which I'm going to focus on today. It's the other original meaning of virtual, which is to be almost or nearly as described, but not completely according to a strict definition. And that might sound a little confusing, but certainly a lot of the leaders that I work with, they talk to me about this is the way that they feel about leadership, and specifically their leadership. So they feel like they might be just kind of getting by, just kind of fudging it a bit, but not really nailing it. And it kind of comes out in a number of different ways. This is the first thing. They feel like they might need to wear a disguise. in order to be a leader. They might need to be some way other than they are normally. And so, you know, putting on the glasses, putting on the false moustache to be a leader, which is different from the way that I am, is maybe how I feel I should be. Another way this is exhibited is this thing, which is where people feel like the chair that they're sitting in is kind of too big for them. They're not really equipped. They're not really ready for the challenges that they face. And we talk about this phenomena a lot in society as a whole at the moment, and we kind of call it the imposter syndrome. And it manifests itself in 3 different ways, specifically this. So I don't belong here. I'm not as capable as they think I am, and my success is due to luck. It's not me being brilliant or talented or skillful or whatever. It's all down to luck. So I'm frightened that I'm going to be found out. And as I think about this, and as I hear this coming from leaders all over the world, one thing that I'm struck by is how business has evolved. So in the 80s, Tom Peters introduced us to, you know, management by walking around. And it feels like today, it feels like in 2020, even before the whole COVID-19 situation, we're really doing management or leadership by the seat of my pants. So I just make it just in time, just, you know, I'm not really firmly entrenched in my leadership. So if we think about leadership, we think about great leaders, you know, there he is out the front with his banner up and really doing great things, leading the team forward. What is it that stops me from feeling like this? And that's what we're going to be discovering today. So I think there are really 3 reasons why we might feel a bit wobbly or a bit virtual about leadership. The first one is this one. So becoming a leader is a tricky business. There was an article in the Harvard Business Review in 2002, I believe, or 2012. I know it had some 2s in it. And Michael D. Watkins talked about what he calls the 7 seismic shifts that people need to take in order to become leaders. So you get specialist to generalist, you get analyst to integrator, tactician to strategist, bricklayer to architect, problem solver to agenda setter, warrior to diplomat, and supporting cast member to leading role. Now, on their own, those things would be tricky, but bunched together, right? That is a completely different role. So the next thing that is probably a reason why we're feeling a little wobbly or like we're virtually getting by is this. Leaders' lives are hectic. So, you know, when we start leading, it's between when we're about 25 and 60. And, you know, we get into careers and jobs and it all gets busier and we have promotions and whatever. And it's also at the same time that we have family stuff, we have children, we have all elderly parents, we have all kinds of stuff all going on at once. And so as if work wasn't enough, we have all these layers of family and community complexity that just make our lives very busy. So we stop thinking about ourselves. We're thinking about everybody else. We're thinking about our team and our boss and our peers and the competition and our kids and our spouse and our parents and you know, our community groups. And we are often the last people on our lists. So we just stop thinking about ourselves. And then the last one is this one. So particularly in the technological age that we live in at the moment, leadership advice abounds. It is everywhere. It is on LinkedIn. It is on Facebook. You have people coming up with new books and podcasts and whatever. And there's all of this noise going on about how we should be doing things. And in fact, what that does with us, it just makes us even more wobbly, because much of this advice actually conflicts. It says completely different things, or we don't see how the advice comes together to make something that would be a really strong platform for us to stand on. So what typically happens is that we keep on keeping on. We keep on keeping on by the seat of our pants, and we continue to feel wobbly. And, you know, I think that's sad. I think leadership is a really hard position. I think it takes very special people to be really good leaders. But I think that there is a huge opportunity for everybody to become one of those special people. And we have a really, really interesting opportunity right now because COVID-19 has slowed us right down. So my two favorite cities here, we have New York on one side and London on the other side, and there's not much going on. And also what we find is that in the lives of a lot of leaders at the moment, because of lockdown, because of quarantine, because of all this, we actually have different time to think about what we're doing. And so my suggestion is, what if we were to use some of this time and think about ourselves as leaders in order to bring more security and more firmness and more stability to the way that we lead, so that we're not leading by the seat of our pants anymore. We're not virtually leading, we're really leading. So I have 5 cunning questions that I think are the root of being able to gain some of this stability. So here they are in this time to think. So the leadership questions are these. So firstly, who are you? Right? Who are you uniquely? What unique skills and talents do you have? Second, where are you going? What are you passionate about? What are you interested in? Because that is likely to be the area where you can lead best. Thirdly, what milestones and measures can guide your journey to get to where you're going? What work do you need to do to reach the milestones and measures? And who is best to carry out that work? So these 5 questions, if you think about it, think about any leader that you know or admire, they would be able to answer these. And if you look around the world, both today and in the past, and probably I would imagine in the future, leaders who really lead well, they have a way of answering these questions. Their answers are not the same. Their answers are often very, very different, but they have ready answers. And it's those answers that help them to lead people, because the questions lead to answers that other people want to know. So who are you begins to describe your leadership approach. It helps people to understand what to expect when being led by you. Where are you going provides purpose, right? We can see the direction. We can see that it's not this, it's this. And so people who are with you, people who are being led by you, get a sense of security that no, we can say no to all of this, it's this instead. The milestones and measures provide some really useful goals, right? We're not just going to be sailing along here, just doing our thing. We're actually going to go for stuff. We're going to maybe reach for levels that we haven't reached for before. We're going to do things that we haven't done. And we're going to celebrate our accomplishments. And then what work needs to be done to get to those miles and measures? This informs process, right? Process is work with a purpose. And process is really important in order to be able to meet milestones and measures. But again, it also provides a wonderful amount of security for the people that you lead. And then who's best to carry out the work? Fit. Do I fit in this organization? Am I the best person to be doing this work in order to achieve these milestones and measures in order to get to this purpose? So you see, the questions that we answer ourselves or that we ask ourselves provide the answers that our team members need. Unless you think I'm making this up. The Gallup organization came up with this thing a number of years ago now. It's the Gallup engagement hierarchy. And what engagement describes is the psychological attachment that employees have with an organization. And employees always ask the same questions in the same order in order to become engaged. It starts at the bottom, what do I get? It moves up to what do I give? Do I belong? And how can I grow? So whether employees are in an office, out on a farm, working from their desk at home, their questions do not change. It is always these questions. And answering those questions from the leader's perspective helps us to be available with a ready answer to be able to make sure that our team members feel like they're actually being led well. It's going to create you in the blue boat position with the white boats behind you. All right, so let's take these 5 questions, the 5 questions that I mentioned earlier, and let's go through them sequentially. So the first one, our approach. So who are you? Right? Everybody we know it answers that question slightly differently. Some of us answer it in qualifications. Some of us answer it in roles. Some of us answer it in stories. And it's all good. But who are you? How do you answer that question? Because until you can answer it, you can't describe to other people what they should expect of you being a leader. So we're all unique, right? Our fingerprints are all unique. Our thumbprints are all unique. But do you have words? Can you describe your unique approach? And there are various ways that we can get help in finding these words. So there are profiles and assessments and timelines that we can do, which will populate some words that describe us. And these words can be helpful. They can be helpful for us because they help us to understand who we are, and they're helpful for others to be able to interpret what the heck we're doing and why did we do this and why might we have said that. I've got timelines on the end here. Timelines are super important because what they enable us to do is to see the experiences that we've had along the way. And you know, all of our experiences are useful in leadership. It's not just our work experiences. So all of the experiences, be they been in home, in community, in school, wherever they are, they're all useful. So as you look back on your life and you think about the successes you've had, the disappointments you've had, and also as you look at your profiles, what does it say about me? If you were to stick all of that together, what would you get? And the chances are you would actually get a really clear description of the kind of person, the kind of leader you are, which is different from the kind of person and the kind of leader that the people next to you might be. You are unique as a leader and you need words to describe it. So knowing your unique approach enables you to do 2 things which are really important for leadership. Firstly, it enables you to make better choices that fit you. So you don't want to be leading in environments that just make you kind of meh or like this. That's not the environment you want to lead in. You want to be leading in an environment that literally lights you up. You are super excited about it. And knowing more about yourself will help you choose those environments. The other thing that knowing your unique approach will do is to help others to understand you, right? And one of the interesting things about doing this work on yourself, finding out who you are, is you instinctively then know that everybody else is different and unique too. So it helps you to discover more about them and to discover their uniqueness, which enables them to feel understood too. So allowing you to find better choices or make better choices that fit you and allowing you to understand and be understood better, it's all good. And it's part of knowing your unique approach. The next question you need to be answering is your purpose. Now, purpose, I hear a lot about purpose, especially recently, and it's the reason for. What is the reason for you leading? What is the reason for you doing a particular thing? Now, we have great business language to describe purpose, and it's these things. Purpose concepts that we use are vision and mission, and those things are used interchangeably, but they're not the same. Here's how they're different. So vision is a description of where we're going and why we're going there. So it's future focused and it's aspirational. Mission is what we're doing to get there. It's today focused, it's practical, realistic, and definite. So what these 2 things enable us to do is to have the long view and the close-up view of our purpose. This describes our reason for actually being in the game long term, and also what are we doing today to enable us to get to where we want to be. So the purpose definitions are important. They also have a sequencing. If you've ever seen anything by Simon Sinek, he's always talking about we start with why. And the why is the vision piece, right? This is the long-term bit. We start with that. And then we can get closer and closer into the what, and eventually into the how. But we start off with the why, we move to the what, and that sequencing is important. The next thing we need to have a look at is some goals. So goals have, they can have a good and bad rap. So goals that we set ourselves, we often really like. Goals that are set for us, sometimes we really don't like, unless our purpose is aligned with the person who set the goals, in which case we can be very motivated by them. Now, goals break down the what and the why into bite-sized chunks. You've heard of, what's the big thing about, how to eat the elephant? Well, you eat him in bite-sized chunks. And goals are the things that enable you to do that. And in order to have really effective goals, they need to include both milestones and measures. So I'm going to do this to this standard, right? The combination of the milestone and the measure provides a really, really safe space to see what activity is needed in order to accomplish them. Now, sometimes goals can be really specific. Sometimes they can be incredibly scientific in the way that they're set. And sometimes they can be aspirational and they can be much broader, and it doesn't matter. All that they have to do is to really align with the purpose that has been set. All right. So purpose comes first, the vision and the mission, and then we can get into goals and measures, which are milestones. How are we going to measure that process? So that would be goals. The best kind of goals, I will tell you, are ones that make you both nervous and excited. So the nervous and excited actually is indicating some level of attachment and enthusiasm about what is going on. And so it's important that both of those things are present. If they're not present, if we're a bit meh about the whole goal, it could be that we're in the wrong place. We're in the wrong place to pull forth what's unique about us. So think about the goals that you have. Think about the goals that you have for your leadership. Think about the goals that you have for your organization. Are they making you both nervous and excited? Because if they're not, you may not have the there to get them accomplished. And having the there is important. The next thing we have is process. Now, process is a beautiful thing. It really is. And to have me say process is a beautiful thing is an unusual thing, because Jackie told you I came out of a fashion background. And so I'm a creative. I like making a lot of mess with a lot of color. I like having not much detail, but a lot of scope. And that's what really excites me. So goals that are around that kind of thing really excite me. I was really introduced to the power of process way back when I was working at the Carlson companies. And I had been the head of organizational effectiveness for the hotels group. And we have been doing great aspirational things with our organization. We have been very visionary. We had been doing all kinds of lovely, broad leadership stuff. And then Carlson itself decided that we needed to bring in Six Sigma. And I didn't know what happened. I didn't know what happened at all. I was completely banjaxed by the whole thing. Fortunately, in our group, in the hospitality group, Six Sigma was brought in by an absolutely wonderful colleague who's become a great friend, who taught me the power of process for organizations. And one of the things that she taught me is that process makes everything that we do, everything that we're trying to work towards, an important thing. And so this can often be our favorite bit if we just like doing work. The how can be a really favorite bit. But basically what purpose does is to help work become purposeful. It helps work drive itself towards those milestones and measures in a way that's predictable and able to be managed in a great way. So leaders need to be the friend of process, because process is what adds some purpose to work. And if leadership is all about helping people to work in a purposeful way that is going to get us to great results, really process is the friend that helps us to do that. Work without purpose can look like this. And we've all been there. And sometimes we get there by mistake. Sometimes we get there because we're kind of covering up for that which we don't really understand or whatever. But it doesn't feel good. It feels like this is a place of desperate yearning and desperate churning. Process helps us get through that. All right, so that's process. And then we come finally onto fit. Now, fit is an extraordinary one because it harkens back to our very first question about our unique approach. So fit. So who's the very, very best person to do purposeful work, process work? Well, it's this person. It's the one who goes, me, pick me. I want to do this. It's the one who's really enthusiastic. It's the one who really has a lot of light in their eyes and excitement in their voice, and maybe is a little bit nervous and excited about it as well. You see, the reason this is the very best person to do the work is that they are self-selecting in. You don't have to motivate this person. You don't have to inspire this person. You don't have to give this person an enormous carrot. This person has already chosen that this is where they want to be because you have articulated the work that you wanted them to do in this wonderful process fashion. So if we can design jobs that people really want to do, our challenges as leaders become very different. They become, how can we grow these people, as opposed to how can we make them do the work that we need them to do. So this is the right one. This is the person. And I absolutely love this little cartoon. I'm not sure if it is by Albert Einstein or not. There's a lot of weirdness that goes on on the interwebs. But everybody is a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, splat, it will live its whole life beginning it's stupid. You see, not everybody can do every job. It depends on their unique skills and talents as to whether they want to, and even if they can. I know that I have a particular set of skills and talents which really preclude me from a whole bunch of stuff, right? But the things that I am good at, I'm really good at. And so if you were to throw me against the tree of being an accountant, I would go splat every time. If you would throw me against the tree of being a scientist and having to work with a lot of data and analytics, I would splat every time. But if you put me in a little bowl, which enables me to influence other people and teach them and come up with great ideas, yeah, that's where my talent is. And this is the same with every single one of us, right? There is an environment where who we are and what we can do really comes together. And as leaders, it's up to us to find that. So as we mentioned before, we are all unique, but can you as a leader describe the uniqueness you need in other people to be able to do that work in that process to achieve those milestones, to those measures in order to be able to get to the purpose you're going towards? It takes some thinking. All of these things take some thinking. So this is what you really want. You need somebody who feels this way about their job. I love my job, right? And they need to be able to see what bit of the entire process it is, right? So this is what this organization is doing. This is the process we use to do it. This is my part of the process, and I want this. I want this. I can do this. I'm a little nervous and excited about it, but actually, this is where I think I fit best. So think about yourself. Think about yourself as a leader. Are you able to say this? Are you able to see exactly where you fit into an organization? And if you're not, just within the realm that you're in, would it be possible for you to create this kind of format, create this kind of guideline, create this kind of structure for the people that you lead? Because if you do, you will always get the best out of them. If you do, it's also possible for you to know where they're going to go next. Because where will they next add value in the process that we're trying to get towards? Once they've mastered a particular area, where will you take them next? It's all about fit. So even in 2020, some things never change. Even with COVID, some things never change. And the questions that people ask, the questions that employees ask never change. What do I get? What do I give? Do I belong? And how can I learn and grow? If you've managed to answer the 5 questions that we saw earlier, you will have answers for their questions. You will be able to come up with great suggestions as to this is what's expected of you, because this is the kind of leader I am, and this is where we're going. This is the work that you need to do. This is the standard you need to do it to. This is what's going to cause you to get reward and recognition. Also, what it will enable you to do is to pack together people who have a shared purpose. Now, if any of you have ever worked with the Q12, the Gallup Q12, there is a particular question on it that raises all the hackles on the back of many people's neck. And it's this thing which says, I have a best friend at work. It's an interesting question, but let me tell you, if you have people working towards a common purpose that you have defined, their vision, their mission, their goals, their milestones, their measures, and their process, and their part of the process is able to be defined, then what happens is they are able to build these very strong, very, very collegial, friendly relationships, because they're not fighting about turf. They're not fighting about direction. They're not fighting about we're going here, not there. They know that. So in fact, what they can do is to do what they do best every day, and it enables them to see each other doing things well and build these fabulous relationships. So in 2020, some things never change. This will never change, but some things do change. And for us, it's this gift of time. It's this gift of time to be able to think in a really measured and strategic way about our approach, our purpose, our goals, our process, and then the fit of the people around us. And I will suggest to you that if we start thinking about those things, if we really give them some great thought, it will make all of the difference between feeling like you're a virtual leader, you're doing it by the skin of your pants, as opposed to you're a really great leader. You're calm, you can focus on the things that really matter most, and you can lead in a way that's really effective. So I think that's all I have for you today. Jackie?
Well, first of all, Alison, thank you. I'm always taken by the imagery you create in your dialogue, so thank you for that. As expected, we have quite a few questions coming in over the wire, so if you don't mind, I'm going to moderate a couple for you.
Great.
All right, the first one. Very helpful framework. In your outline, you moved from purpose, which was mission and vision, to goals, then on to process. As such, where does strategy fit in?
Oh, this is such a good question. So remember I was telling you that leadership advice abounds, right? Some of the leadership advice is really conflicting. You can put strategy wherever you want to put strategy, right? As long as you have purpose and goals. So actually the whole question about strategy, it's a semantic, it's a potato to potato question. It really is. As long as you have your purpose defined, your goals defined, you're going to be fine. You can call whatever you like strategy, and you can agree with other people when they disagree with you. It's all good.
All right, thank you. Do you have any suggestions for startups where roles often combine multiple roles into one? A necessary evil to do things we don't want to do?
Yeah. Yes, I do. So I also have a startup. I lead the Really Useful People group, which is me and my chief of staff, which is my small dog. And so I know exactly of what you speak. Basically, the most important thing is to keep defining what are the most important tasks that you need to do, right? And what are the tasks that is really not worth your time? It's not worth all the hassle, and to shop those bad boys out. So yes, you can do a certain amount to the level of your ability, but you probably can't do it all. And so who would be your team? And sometimes your team can be apps. Right. So some of the ways that I do some of my work in my startup is to actually use apps that can remind me to do things, that can track things that I can't be tracking and whatever. So again, think about that fit. Is it you that needs to be doing this work? Is it another person that you need to get to do the work? Or can you use some technological answers to those questions?
Thank you. And actually, you must have struck a chord, because there's another question that is related to this one. Love and get the idea of finding that role or company that is perfect for your style. Not always possible, or so it seems. Any tips on how to bring your passion into companies and roles that aren't necessarily your perfect fit?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So do what you can with what you have where you are. It's the Teddy Roosevelt quote from his autobiography. If you start changing a microcosm of a business, other people will see the difference that you're making, and they will become interested in it, or they won't. And if they don't, then that's really interesting information for you. Okay, so you can either sit there and keep doing what you're doing, or you can choose to take your talents to a place that really will appreciate them. I will tell you, I've been a hiring manager in my previous life, and there is nothing more appealing than somebody who is really, really committed to what we're trying to do and thinks that they can contribute to it. So keep doing what you're doing where you are with what you have, but also keep looking for the things that really make your heart sing, and put yourself in the position where you can show your enthusiasm for that to people who might want your skills. Keep going.
Thank you. Next question. I just started a new leadership position in April with 3 people on my team. In these initial weeks leading virtually, do you have any advice on how to communicate my approach and build a shared purpose?
So I do. So I would take the things that you know about yourself, the language that you know about yourself, which may be your Strengths Finder language, it may be your Myers-Briggs language, it may be your Hogan inventory language, all those things, all those profiles that you've ever taken that describe you, use that to show them who you are, and also tell them stories about you so that they start knowing who you are. Also, what I would encourage you to do is to get them to do the same. So you have a bit of a show and tell, right? This is Alison, this is Jackie, this is Jordan, whatever. You do a bit of that. Once you find out who you all are and what you want, knowing that the purpose of your company is probably set, the best thing is to say, well, what could we, with all our uniqueness, do in order to get the company further towards where we're going? So have that conversation. It could be astounding.
Thank you. Next question is a little twisty. How can you manage up and have your manager accept the need for communicated goals and processes?
So, you can do what you can where you are with what you have. You can't change anybody else. They're going to do what they're going to do, but it doesn't stop you from keeping on doing the right thing. So again, I kind of have a pull the ripcord approach to, if your talent is not being appreciated or wasted, or you feel like it's being wasted in an organization, if you can, make a different choice, because there is nothing more upsetting or demeaning or just frustrating than knowing you're trying to do the right thing and being squashed. Right? It can really have some damaging effects on your self-esteem, your mental health, or whatever. So, do what you can do with what you have, where you are. And if you can't, thank you, I'm off.
All right. Thank you for that. The next question probably pulls more on your HR background. Do you have any tips for moving an employee that is in a role that's for them to a more appropriate role?
Jackie, you broke up again.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have any tips for moving an employee that is in a role that's not right for them into a more appropriate role?
Yeah. So have a conversation with them, a conversation that goes, what's working? Where are we getting stuck? And what could we be doing differently? Right? And if you're able to have that conversation, and if it's able to be a conversation where you can both share equally, you don't have to agree. So it could be that they are actually really struggling and they can't wait for you to have that conversation with them. So if it is a conversation that's set in curiosity, not judgment, not like you know what, Jackie, you're doing a terrible job of this, and I just, blah, 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 blah. It's not like that. It's a, Jackie, how do you think it's going? Right? If you can have that conversation and do it with an open mind and with honesty, you might find that they're closer to where you are than you had imagined. So try that.
Very good. The next question I'm fascinated with in the VUCA world is how I'm kind of contexting it. As a leader focused on developing leaders, I'm wondering how to ensure room for multiple leaders within an organization or group.
Ooh, how to allow room for
multiple leaders within an organization or a group.
This is interesting. What I'm going to assume from this question is that your organization gets to a narrow, pointy bit at the top. And so you might have lots of really, really great talent further into the organization. But as you keep promoting people, the organization gets tighter and tighter and tighter. And what I will tell you is that your remit as a leader, whilst it may for a certain time be in a particular organization, it's broader than that. Right? If you get the opportunity to lead somebody, you actually have the opportunity to lead them for life beyond the organization. And so what you can be doing is to get them ready for jobs maybe in this organization, but also maybe on the outside. I had the great good fortune to actually play this out in practice when I was at Caribou. We set up a whole department that we knew was a bit of a unicorn, and it was fabulous. It was really good. And right from the outset, we knew that if times changed, if things got hard, it would be the first one to be cut. And you know what? It was. But what we had done in that time was to prepare this person to take their fabulous skill set and be successful elsewhere. So I think having a conversation which is really real about what's possible here, but also what's possible for you on the outside is, I think, a really important one.
Thank you. The next question, and I've got a smile on my face. I've heard a lot about discovering your purpose lately. It seems to be popping up all over the place. Is this something that I'm just finally open to hearing, given to where I am in my life? Or has there been a renewed emphasis on this concept in books and education lately?
Yeah, I actually think it has something to do with the time to think. So I think we've always known that we should do this work, and now we actually have some time to do this work. So one of the things that I noticed in the first couple of weeks of the lockdown is all of a sudden, all people who do work like I do, they were giving huge amounts of advice on finding out what matters most and what is your purpose and whatever. It's all good stuff. Yes, I think there's been a resurgence of it. It's always a good thing to do. Maybe now is the time for you.
Great. Next question. It goes to the imposter syndrome you referenced at the start. So you talked about imposter syndrome, and you're also getting all this conflicting advice from all the websites and the webcasts. How do I navigate this, especially if I think I struggle with imposter syndrome?
Yeah, well, start with you, and start not with what you're not, but with what you are. I think one of the analogies that I've once heard about this is often we're moving so quickly down the carpet, so quickly ahead, that we're failing to see where we've come from because the carpet is rolling up behind us. And I think actually stopping to see who we are, what our accomplishments are, what are the things that we have got through, what are the things that we have succeeded in, what are the things that we've overcome. It's very helpful in making sure that we remember the things that we can do as opposed to the things that we can't do. I have always advocated that every year people should do a long version of their resume or their CV, which includes all the projects that they've worked on, all of the successes that they've had with people, all of the educational opportunities that they've had. Because if you create that, if you put that together, it is astonishing to see how much we do. And that record will allow you to focus on that which you are and spend less time focusing on what you assume you're not. Comparison is always the thief of joy. So stop looking out there and start looking here.
Why is employee engagement so important? Right now, I feel like so many companies are saying that you're just lucky to have a job.
Shame on them. Shame on them. So employee engagement is so important because those companies with their wild visions and missions and aspirations, they have to be fueled by something. And that is the enthusiasm, that is the motivation and the drive of the people within them. So I would really wish that everybody on this call is in an organization who really cherishes the people within them. What engagement did for us for the first time was to measure the psychological connection that people have with an organization. And it's actually quite a scientific measure. So it measures how much heart I put into what I do. And obviously the more heart I put into what I do, the more likely an organization is going to be effective. Right? So it is an incredibly important thing. Those 4 levels of engagement questions are the ones that really should keep managers and organizations awake at night.
All right, thank you. I'm going to do just a few more questions here. I was recently promoted and I'm stepping into my diplomat role. How can I do this when in the old environment I was viewed as a warrior? And now I'm in this virtual environment trying to kind of recast.
So be completely transparent about the change that you're making. And particularly with the people who support you, which may be your peers, maybe your leader, maybe the people that you are leading. So tell them about the transition that you're trying to make, be open with them, and get them to hold you accountable when you do it and when you don't.
All right, thank you. Do you have to be nice to be a good leader?
Absolutely not. Some people don't have nice in them. They're just tricky people, right? They're argumentative, they're combative, they're all of those kind of things. However, if they understand who they are, if they know where they're going, if they're able to set clear goals, right? If they're able to provide process and they're able to appreciate where others would fit in that, they can be a great leader. It's got nothing to do with being nice, although being nice is nice.
Great. All right, I'm going to ask you one last one. I got a couple to choose from. What is the biggest difference between leading virtually versus leading in person?
Yeah, I really like this question, and I will tell you the biggest difference is time. It's the time you have, and it's the time they have. So what are you going to do with this time? How can you turn it into a way that's going to be positive both for you and for them? It's not about doing things the same way. It's a chance for exploration. It's a chance for some greater thinking and discovery.
Great. Well, Alison, I can't thank you for joining us today. It was a great presentation. I hope everyone enjoyed today's presentation. And as you all know, we follow our executive education courses. So if you are looking for more comprehensive development outside these weekly online learning series, take a look at our website. Just as a friendly reminder, our next session is on Wednesday, May 13th, Marketing During a Pandemic with Chief Marketing Officer Kim Martinez. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Have a great Thursday, and I hope I see you next week.